Yet another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by thelines.com. My name is Eli Hershkovich. You can follow The Lines on Twitter at TheLinesUS. You can follow our MLB lead analyst, Nuwwarah, on Twitter as it says on the screen. We're recording here on Wednesday, April 26th, breaking down two Major League Baseball bets for Wednesday's card. But before we get started, remember to give the video a thumbs up and ring the bell to get notifications whenever The Lines releases a new sports betting video on any market, including MLB. And thelines.com is also giving away yet another $25 Amazon gift card in our free MLB Pick'em contest. For more details, just head over to play.thelines.com. But without further ado, Mo, 2-0 day for you on the podcast yesterday. And the Dodgers came back at the forefront, and then the Royals came through on the late night slate, knocking off Arizona. It couldn't be a Royals bet, though, without a sweat, right?
Let me tell you, that one took about, I'll say 2.5 days off the back end of my life sweating that one. That was not fun. I would say the Royals did everything possible wrong in that game, and they still won as underdogs, so I guess I feel pretty good about my bet. They had like 13 hits or something, and just a masterclass from the Royals in losing baseball. Just being thrown out on the base paths, poor defense, idiotic managing. I mean, just everything. They did absolutely everything wrong, and they still won.
Can't get worse than the St. Louis Cardinals. I think we can both agree on that, though. Brady Singer, though, bounced back for Kansas City. 6 innings, 5 hits allowed, and just 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts, no walks. So Singer looking like last season, at least on Tuesday night. But back to today's card, Mo. At 7:20 p.m. Eastern time, the Marlins taking on the Braves. Miami at 12-12. Atlanta 16-8. Total in this game sitting at a flat 8. Atlanta starting Bryce Elder against last season's NL Cy Young Award winner, Sandy Alcantara. Alcantara with a 5.47 ERA, but that 3.49 FIP shows that positive things may be on the horizon. And it's a small sample size in 4 starts for Sandy, but the chase rate is in the 54th percentile. That's kind of the one thing that stood out to me among all of his peripherals, considering nothing has really been that crazy. His ground ball percentage is a bit lower than last season, but again, it's a smaller sample size, just 4 starts. But you go back to that chase rate, and he finished in the 94th percentile last season. So that's a bit alarming. But again, it is very early in the season. As I mentioned with Alcantara, not a strikeout pitcher, lots of ground balls. So do you expect him to bounce back against Atlanta tonight?
I don't know if I expect like 2022 Cy Young Sandy Alcantara going forward. I do think, obviously, he's been a bit unlucky. I think his ERA is like north of 5 right now or something. But, even if last year was his peak, I do think we're going to see kind of low 3s ERA Sandy, which is basically what he's been in his career. He's been good overall against the Braves in his career for what it's worth, 2.42 ERA over 10 starts. I'm not sure if that's meaningful, but it at least could be a good thing. I definitely think he'll be fine, and just he's off to a slow start. I don't think it's a big deal, but maybe not Cy Young contender, but he should be a well above average pitcher. On the other side, I'm really liking what Bryce Elder's been doing for the Braves. He was not like a super highly rated prospect, but I do think he may have made some changes. He's really leaning into his slider, throwing it quite often, slider, sinker, pretty heavy a dose of those pitches. It kind of makes me think he's going to be a little bit of not a like platoon splits, like where he can't face lefties, but just a guy that I think is going to have a pretty decent sized split just with that sort of repertoire. I think Miami is a good matchup for him, though, because I'm only seeing 2 lefties in their projected lineup. Now it's their 2 best hitters, Jazz Chisholm and Luis Ariz, but still, I think that's good for him. And also Miami, very high grounder team. They were, I think, 11th last year, and they're second so far this year, which definitely makes sense. They add Luis Ariz. He is a spray the ball all over the field type of guy. So yeah, I think they play into Elder's ground ball lean for sure. So not a huge totals guy. I have mixed reviews in my life betting totals, but I do kind of like under 8 on this one.
And you mentioned Luis Ariz, obviously traded from Minnesota this past offseason for Pablo Lopez, who was off to a good start before giving up 5 earned runs to the Nats over the weekend. But Lopez's current teammate, Joe Nolan Ryan, if you want to pronounce his or say his full name, had another big start against the Yankees, giving up 1 earned run in 7 innings pitched on Tuesday night, 7 strikeouts. So as low as 25-1 in the AL Cy Young betting market. Obviously super early in the season. And Garrett Cole now 4-1, I believe, on FanDuel Sportsbook, and as low as plus 325 or right around that number, I want to say, in this futures market. So long way to go, but like where I'm at with the Ryan futures bet, at least it's better, or at least it's shorter than it was when I got it right before the season began at 100-1. But last game on the card to hit on, Mo, Padres at Cubs. San Diego underperforming to begin the season, 12-13. Cubs are outperforming some people's expectations. You had a bit of a long shot futures wager on Chicago, not postseason wise, but regular season. And the Cubs are 13-9. This money line market is minus 110 both ways as of Wednesday, late morning, early afternoon, depending on when you're listening to the podcast. Michael Wacha against Drew Smyly. And you go back to last Friday, the 33-year-old southpaw for the Cubs lost a perfect game against the Dodgers when he and Yan Gomes collided on a swinging bunt attempt in the 8th inning. And Smiley's actually been pretty good this season, a 3.13 ERA. Former Tiger also has a 1.95 xERA, so the peripherals like Smiley so far. Are you leaning towards the Cubs, Andrew Smiley, for the final game on today's Beat the Closing Number podcast, Mel?
I like the other side in this one. Yeah, underperforming is putting it mildly when you talk about this Padres lineup. 89 WRC plus. I mean, just looking at this lineup, it really boggles the mind, to be honest. Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts, top 4 in the lineup. I mean, just imagining that team being outside the top 5 of hitting is insane. And they're just like below the fold. So it's really been a pathetic showing for this offense so far. I just can't imagine it's going to continue. Yeah, I know the Cubs have been hot so far, but they are not nearly as good as the Padres pretty much across the board. Defense, bullpen, offense. It's just, on paper, the Padres are much better everywhere. Now, starting pitching, I think, is close in this one. I would rate these pitchers pretty closely, I think. Smiley does have stretches where he goes through where he looks very good, and then he'll just completely fall off the wagon, and then the net result just ends up being he's like a little bit below average, I think, in his career. Overall in his career, he has struggled a decent amount facing right-handed batters. So not only is this a very talented Padres lineup, it's a pretty right-handed lineup. Only, I believe, 2 lefties in the projected lineup, and one of them is Juan Soto. So good luck with that. And yeah, he's got a 330 WOBA, basically, against right-handed batters, below average FIP, below average xFIP. He's just not that good without the platoon advantage. And I know Wacha's been just absolutely hammered so far, but I still am just maintaining the same thing that I've been saying basically since I watched one of his starts and looked at his numbers. He's basically just been unlucky. I don't think he's very good or anything. It's just funny for me to be like fading him after last year because betting on him because last year I was fading him constantly and he just was riding the absolute most BABIP luck to just win after win. And now he has a 394 BABIP and a 61% left on base. And that's just purely outside of his control. The one thing I did see in his profile that is a little bit off is he's not getting pop-ups. He's at like 3% on pop-ups. And last year and the year before that, he was in double digits infield fly ball rate, which is really strong. And I can only assume those are going to come back at some point. It seems kind of crazy to go from, 12%, 13%, 14% down to like 3.5 or whatever he's at now. So yeah, the BABIP has not been kind to him so far. I'm guessing it will normalize at some point. So I think he's probably fine, like slightly below average pitcher, just like Drew Smyly, basically. So yeah, I know that the Cubs have been way better than the Padres across the board, but on paper, this is definitely not true.
And you called out San Diego's lineup collectively. I just want to mention that Xander Bogaerts has a top 5 WAR across Major League Baseball this season. So if you want to call out,
every time I watch Xander Bogaerts, he's hitting grounders through the hole. I hit one over the fence.
He's got 5 home runs.
Well, not when I'm watching him and I'm sweating the Padres. He's getting on base. He's not hitting for any power when I've got him on.
All right. Well, maybe that was the one game we were together that you were watching San Diego. But fair enough. That is Nuwwarah. You can follow him on Twitter on the YouTube screen as it says. If you're not watching on YouTube and listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your favorite podcasts, follow Mo on Twitter at MONUWWARAH. You can follow the lines on Twitter as well at The Lines US. Thanks for watching and listening to another edition of Beat the Closing Number presented by TheLines.com. We'll be back tomorrow with a couple of episodes, including a very special baseball guest diving into all things MLB. Talk to you then.